table for like 10 years. So. It's okay. It's okay. Thank you, Giovanna, very much. I appreciate you and Stephen very much for the hard work you've done for this event. It makes a huge difference. And Giovanna's quite right. I got to know her about 10 years ago, and we were young organizers, just like all of you. And I'll tell you some stories in a minute after I do my thank yous. I really want to thank you, Kim, for doing this. It's amazing that you're putting, your popularity, your name, your reputation behind a political candidate that you believe in, and it makes a huge difference. People want to come see you. I'm okay, but you are really interesting, and it's wonderful that you could, come behind this group in particular, young professionals and our gay rights activists. It really matters to share your voice and help amplify their voice through your participation. So thank you very much. So I'll just tell you a little bit about my early days in New York. I know I came to New York after law school in 1991. It was ages ago. But I was exactly like you. I was a young Democrat who wanted to get involved, didn't really know how, didn't know what impact I could have. But I called a friend of mine, and she said, join this women's group. It was called the Women's Leadership Forum. And so I joined the WLF and find out that all the women are older than me, in their late 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. And I'm the only woman in her 20s. And I joined this group and realized that we need to do better. And so me and a few of the women here, we were all part of the WLF, and we decided to make a young women's part of the WLF Network. And so what we did is our goal was to get women under 40 to care about politics and to then be empowered by politics, to begin to learn what it means to raise money, what it begins to mean to take a candidate and believe in that candidate and try to get that candidate elected. And we did speakers training so that women would feel more comfortable articulating their views and persuading their boyfriends and their husbands and their co-workers and their girlfriends why they were right about a certain issue. And so we did speakers training, we did media training, and we did fundraising organizing. And it was a huge deal. And we did it during the John Kerry race, and we got 1,500 women to join our group and raised about $200,000. Now, that is a lot of money for young women to raise who are brand new to politics, but that's exactly the power of this group. You have no idea what you can accomplish until you try. The fact that we have so many of you here today is a testament to that energy that you have and that dedication to having an impact on the world around you. Now, I had a role model, and this is unique because not many people come to politics having a role model. I had one in my grandmother, and that may seem odd, but she was a woman who 75 years ago had the idea that women's voices mattered and that women should have an impact on democratic politics. And she was very wise because she did exactly what we're doing now. She organized other women. And she got many, many women all across New York State to care about politics at a time when women had no political power, none at all. The only woman who had any political power was Eleanor Roosevelt. And she was out campaigning around the state for her husband, who was then running for governor. But that was it. And she knew one basic thing, that through group action, through collective action, through coming together, that people who have no voice can together have a great voice, have a great impact. And that's what's happening today. That's why the LGBT community is so powerful now. What is happening in Washington is the most important civil rights march of this generation. I cannot overstate how important the work that we're doing on the grassroots is. We have so many laws that discriminate against gay Americans. The one that upsets me the most is Don't Ask, Don't Tell, because it's a question of our national security, and as Admiral Mullen says, it's a question of integrity. We are asking men and women who are serving in the military, who are giving their lives, risking everything, to lie every day about what's most important to them, who they love, who their next of kin is, who they want notified if they're killed in battle or gravely injured. And we teach our military men and women to always tell the truth, except of course about who you kissed goodbye before you were deployed. And that is outrageous. And I can tell you that when I started thinking about this issue, it was because of the testimony of one man. It was Lieutenant Dan Choi. And he came to me and he said, Kirsten, he said, I'm a soldier. I have been training for this job. I will do everything from our country. But they're asking me to lie every day. and it's fundamental to my integrity and the integrity of the armed services. And that really was a wake-up call to me, because I understood about the policy. I always hated the policy, but when I heard it from him in his own personal story, it made me furious. And so I started investigating. Don't Ask, Don't Tell has been so destructive. In just 16 years, we've lost 13,000 personnel. More than 10% of our foreign language speakers in Farsi and Arabic and all these languages that we need so desperately in fighting terrorism. We've lost more than 800 men and women in mission-critical areas that cannot be easily replaced. We spent more than $300 million on recruitment and replacement costs. And it's overwhelmingly affected women, which most people don't realize. Women represent 17% of the military, but a third of all the dismissals. So it was a tool by a lot of people to get rid of women in the military, just out her. And so it was a very discriminatory policy that overwhelmingly weakens our armed services, undermines the command structure, and frankly undermines morale. And so I had an amendment to put a moratorium on Don't Ask, Don't Tell for 18 months to let the president and the military figure things out. And I didn't get to 60 votes. But for all the undecided Democrats I found, they said two things. They said, I need to see leadership from the president, or I need to see leadership from the armed services. So I set out to get both. I started lobbying the administration, saying we need a public statement, and we need you to come out on this. I started lobbying the military, and I started figuring out I need testimony. So I went to the chairman of the Armed Services Committee, and I said, will you hold a hearing? I've got X number of votes, it's close to 60, and he's in favor of repeal, and he said, I will. And we just had the first hearing in 16 years on this policy. And the testimony was better than we could have ever imagined. You know, when I set out to have this hearing, I thought, we'll get some ambivalent statements, but it'll be something that we can use, and it might be enough to get the last votes. But what we got was unbelievable. Admiral Mullen, you know, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the top dog in the military, gets up and says, this policy is wrong. This policy undermines the integrity of not only the individual, but the entire armed services. This policy needs to be repealed, and I have every confidence that our military men and women can accommodate this policy change, and I have every confidence that it will do nothing to undermine morale or undermine the command structure of this military. And so it couldn't have been better, it couldn't have been clearer, and it was a complete success. So now, I can go back to these undecideds and say, you've got State of the Union, President says he wants to repeal, you've got Admiral Mullen, you've got Secretary Gates, what's your answer? And I think we can get this done. I really believe we can get this done this year. And I think that's just the beginning, because I think once we can repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell, we can go after DOMA and repeal DOMA. I think we can get an end to legislation that's inclusive. What's LGBT without the T? You need the T?
Yeah.
So we've got to represent everybody in our community, and I think it's very important that we do. So I see an enormous opportunity here because the nation is ready. You know, we were very disappointed in New York that we didn't get marriage equality here this year. We will get marriage equality. If Iowa can have marriage equality, New York can have marriage equality.